New to Lightroom 5 is the ability to create smart previews. Smart previews make it possible to work on images regardless of the location of the original file. In this video, you'll fully understand the positive implications of this new capability. Before I show you how to build a smart preview, let me show you one of the limitations of Lightroom that exists when you don't use smart previews. As you probably know by now, Lightroom is not an image browser. You need to import images into Lightroom before you can work on them. Technically, you're not importing the actual image, but creating a relationship between Lightroom and the original file. Lightroom generates large and small previews as needed. In this way, Lightroom is more like a database. As long as Lightroom can locate the original file, you can apply develop settings and make changes. However, if the original file is offline or lost, you can only do a limited amount of things with it in Lightroom. Let me show you what I mean. Right now, all these files are online. In other words, Lightroom can find them. Now, I'm going to go over to my desktop, and I'm going to eject the drive that these files are on. Okay? So now, we're going to see what happens. Okay, so now I'm over here, back in Lightroom, and you can see by this exclamation point up here that the photo is missing. If I look over here under the histogram, it also says photo is missing. All right, so what happens now? I can still see the thumbnail. We can still organize images within a collection. We can sort images. We could even add some keywords and work with the metadata. So we can do a few things. But let's say we want to make some changes in the develop module. Let me see what happens. I'm going to go over to the develop module now. Because the image is offline, if we look here over on the right under the histogram, it says the photo is missing, and all these controls in the right side panel of the develop module, they're all grayed out. Won't be able to do anything to this image. Let's go over to the print module. Once again, I can't print this image because it's not online. If I go back to the library module and try to export that image, I can't export it. So you see I'm fairly crippled now because I don't have access to the original file. And this is where smart previews come in. So let's see what happens when we generate a smart preview and take the original files offline. In order to do that, of course, I need to get my images back online. So let me see if I can do that fairly easily by turning on the hard drive. This is an external hard drive. And frankly, I don't keep my original files on anything but an external drive. It takes up too much space. There's too much information there to fit on, say, my laptop. So I'm not going to travel with all these original files. They're always going to be someplace else, which is the problem. So let's just see if we can now get the images back online. And as soon as they go online, hopefully that'll be soon, the explanation points here will go away as soon as Lightroom creates that relationship again with the original files. Okay, so now I have the files back online. Over here on the right, it says original photo, and it's online, ready to go. So let's see how to build a smart preview so we don't run into that offline problem that we just ran into. Now, we could build smart previews on the import process. So even before we bring the images into Lightroom, we can create smart previews over here under file handling by selecting build smart previews. So now when I bring in a whole series of images, it will automatically create smart previews for them. So personally, this is not how I would work. I wouldn't necessarily bring in 100 or 500 images from an import and have all of them have a smart preview associated with them, because I just don't need smart previews for my bad images, frankly. So this is not the way that I would necessarily do it, but you can see that it is one way of doing it. What I would do instead is, once I've made a selection of images that I like, that I know I'll be working with later, let's say on the road with my laptop, I'll put those in a collection, let's say, and then I have them all ready to go to build a smart preview from. So I'm going to make a selection here. I have one photo selected, but if I use Command or Control A, all of them will be selected. Now look over here under the histogram, and you can see it's 24 images are selected. These are the original files. They are online. And then over here, it's telling me that there are no originals plus smart previews. So there's no smart previews yet. Over here, there's 0 smart previews. And here, we're not missing any because we haven't generated any. Now let's generate smart previews. It's so simple. I just click here, and this smart preview window appears, and it asks me, do I want to build smart previews for 24 photos? And it tells me that the catalog already has 13 smart previews totaling 14 megabytes. Now it's giving me an idea how big my file is going to get, and that's very useful. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to build 24 smart previews. And if you look here in the upper left-hand corner, there's a status bar that is telling me that the building is taking place. I can also stop that process by selecting this little X on the very end. Okay, so while it's building those smart previews, let me talk about some things that are related. So one of the things that's new to Lightroom 5, besides the smart previews, obviously, is that I can create a smart collection that will automatically place any smart. Okay, so let's stop for a second and see what it says here. Smart previews were built or already exist for 24 of them. So they were already built for 24 of them. That's fine. Okay. So now we have 24 smart previews plus originals. Okay, let me go back over to my original point that I was talking about collections. So if I want to create a smart collection that automatically places these smart previews into that collection, I can do that now. There's a new criteria that's been added. Let me select the plus sign and create a smart collection. And instead of basing the smart collection on rating or pick flag or label color or any of these other criteria, I can now choose Have Smart Preview. Now, once a smart preview is created, because this is a smart collection, it will automatically be placed into a smart collection called, I'm going to give it a name, Smart Preview. Smart Previews. Okay, and I'll create it. So you'll see down here, I didn't have to do anything. Now under Smart Previews, under a smart collection, there are 38 images that are smart previews or have originals with smart previews. And that number will go up as I build smart previews without me doing anything. So it's a great way to automatically have smart previews organized. Now also up here under the library filter, under metadata, this is also a new option. You can choose to search based on smart preview. So that's new as well. Okay, so let me go ahead and close the library filter, select none. And I want to talk a little bit more about just background information about smart previews. What they are really are just highly compressed DNG files. And you have to remember that when you create one of these smart previews, and let's say you're religiously backing up your catalog, which you should be doing, I want you to remember that when you do the backup of your catalog, it's not backing up these smart preview files. That's something you have to do manually from the desktop or for wherever those smart previews are located along with the Lightroom database application itself. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, if you want to see how big those files are getting, it's pretty easy. Let me take a trip over to my Finder, and I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to check out how big now the folder is that has these smart previews in it. So this is my library. Here we go, Lightroom. And let me put this in a form that we can see it better. Now look over here where it says Smart Preview Data. Lightroom 5 Catalog Smart Preview Data. This is where it exists, and it's 47.7 megabytes. That's giving me an idea of how much size it's taking up. This is where I'd also back this file up as well. I would make a duplicate of this and back it up. Okay, so let's go back over to Lightroom. Now I'm going to take my hard drive offline again, as I did before. Whoops, I need to go back to the Finder to do that. Let's do that over here. And just take those hard drives offline. Eject, and let's eject this one. And so now the hard drives that contain my original files are offline. But the cool thing is, I still have my smart previews. And I can see that over here because it's telling me there are 24 smart previews. Now when I go over to the develop module, I can actually work on that image. Then when I go online to my original files, I can then synchronize these. They'll be in sync. The original files and the smart previews will be in sync. And I can just do anything I want to the smart previews. And so this is great when you're traveling, if you're on a plane or train. You can work on your files, come back to your office or your studio, and then synchronize them. And you're all set. I'm so excited about smart previews. I think it's just a great addition to Lightroom 5. And I think you'll agree with me once you start working with them.